So welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders and thinkers. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Walters. Paul, you're very welcome to the podcast. Let's begin by asking you to introduce yourself and what you do to our international audience.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Walters. I'm a chef, positive thinker. I do food columns for various newspapers and magazines in the UK, Ireland, and the USA.
And some of those titles are quite well known, Paul. You've been a columnist for a long time now, and you're often making us quite envious at the beautiful dishes that you discuss, share about, and the photography that you do. But could you maybe talk a little bit about, you've 30 years experience, so you didn't start off as this renowned chef and columnist, did you? So where did it all start for you, and a little bit about that journey, if you can?
Well, I first started when I was 17, and I applied for a job as a kitchen assistant. And little shock to my heart, I got the job. I never worked in a kitchen in my life. And the head chef at the time said to me, says, your job is peel potatoes, cut onions, cut carrots, all the jobs that a chef doesn't do, basically. So I says, okay, and why not? I wanted to learn. It was something different for me. I thought this job was going to last 6 months. So 6 months went down the line. I'm still in the job. I thought, you know what? I'm doing something right here. So came to a year, and then I decided this is not a bad job. I think I could be a chef. So I went to college. I got my qualifications, and my journey began. I left college. I went to work in Jersey and the Channel Islands, where I lived in a tent, which was a pretty experience. Living in a field, which a lot of people thought was very bizarre. A chef working in a hotel, but living in a field in a tent. So while I was working in Jersey and the Channel Islands, the head chef had said to me, if you want to progress as a chef, the best place for you to go to is working in London. So I applied for numerous hotels in London, and a lot of them got back to me, but the one seemed of interest in me was the Savoy Hotel. As you well know, the Savoy Hotel at the time in the early 90s was a massive hotel, still is a massive hotel. So I applied for the job, and I basically made a mess of the interview. I didn't think I got the job, but I said to the chef at the time, I want to learn to become a chef. So he says, if you want to learn to become a chef, this is the right place for you. We will teach you to become a chef, teach you to become a better person, and teach you how to cook. So I was like, great, happy days. So that was the start of my journey. And I took off from there. Fast forward a lot of years, I started doing food online. And I said, how am I going to get my knowledge of food to different people and see how I cook? So I decided to set up a Facebook page called Simple, Tasty, Healthy by PW, which I thought was, it's good. It started off, I was showing my food to different people. A lot of people caught on to it. I thought, this is very good. We like this. So then I decided to use my food on LinkedIn. So this one, the newspapers and magazines got in touch with me and says, we love your food. Do you fancy doing something for us? To my surprise, I was like, I'd love to. First person got in touch with me was a guy called Paddy McCarthy, who I have a lot of credit to from the Irish Examiner USA, who gave me my first break. And my food took off from there. And it was literally incredible. Seeing yourself in an American newspaper and your food, to me, that was like, wow. And it just took off from there. And a few years down the line, I'm still doing the papers, still doing the magazines, still teaching people how to cook online, and loving every minute of it.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Paul. And like, what a journey from living in the tent, applying for a job, not thinking you've got it, and then it sounds like the Savoy Hotel, which, it's known around the world, was a bit of a step
Mhm,
change for you. That seemed to be a bit of a pivot into the world of learning to be a chef, and upskilling and
mhm, mhm.
learning and everything. But just to go right back, because I know your grandmother's influenced your early cooking. Both of your grandmothers, I think, were both great cooks. Do you
Yeah.
think that's what got you
Mhm.
interested in it in the first place? Or was it just sheer, no pun intended, potluck in terms of going for an interview because you needed a job?
Um, uh, my parents and grandparents were like a huge inspiration to me, especially both my grandparents, because I used to go to my grandparents every Saturday, and we used to do one in the morning and then the other one in the afternoon. And in the mornings, I used to see one grandmother making fresh bread, fresh soups, and this woman was continuously cooking. And I was like, "Wow, this is incredible. This is amazing. I've never seen anything like this before in my life." And then I went to my other grandparents, and she would make buns. And to me, I was like, "Wow, this is incredible." I says, "How is this possible?" So when I look back then, I think I'd love to cook someday. But the problem with me when I was younger, I was always a dreamer. I always used to dream up a life that I wanted to have. I wanted to be travel around the world and do this, but I didn't think it was possible. So then, when this opportunity came to work in the Savoy, I thought, yeah, this is good. I'm a young Belfast kid working in London, big city, big smoke, frightening the life out of me. But you know what? I learned so much, and it was, yes, a stepping stone, and it did open the door for me to many places, and I'm forever grateful for the Savoy for giving me the opportunity to work there.
And Paul, your work today, the food that you showcase today, and your knowledge and your experience over 3 decades, and
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through your own Simply Tasty Healthy by PW, or whether it's through the latest, newspaper or magazine that you're flipping through, food
Mm-hmm.
today, it's almost a celebrity thing. You've probably seen the sort of, from the obscurity of the chef in the back that you never really saw, to the celebrity that we had around chefs and food and cook. And they talk today, don't they, about food porn, and people get very, very carried away by the sort of trend of food. We've seen very high-end establishments opening up around the world, and that continues. And of course, the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic was a real wake-up call, I suppose, when people had to pivot to, delivery versus, in dining experiences. But I'm just interested in your perspective of seeing that whole journey. Where do you think we're at now? And what are your views when I sort of talk about that from a story arc, in terms of that journey that we've had from chefs to the world of food today?
I think everybody loves celebrities, whether it's a chef, whether it's a musician, whether it's a TV person. Everybody has their own concept of how they put them out there. Personally, I like celebrity chefs. I like celebrity rock stars. But at the end of the day, people are not celebrities for like the people like myself and yourself who make them become celebrities. So celebrities need to take the time to talk to people, remember who they are, remember who their fans are, and remember who put them there. Because certain chefs um, don't appreciate the people who support them and do work for them. They may look at them on TV and say, "Yes, you're amazing, you're incredible," but do they get in touch with their fans? Do they get in touch with people to say, "Thank you very much for watching me on TV. Thank you very much for doing this"? They don't. On my page, I always take the time to say thank you for the people who took the time to say your food is beautiful. Thank you very much. To me, a little thank you goes a long way. And I think more and more people should say thank you for what people are making and what they are and what they do. All it takes is thank you very much. It's little things like that, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you raise. And obviously, you've sort of touched on that a couple of times, always being mindful and thankful for the people that have maybe helped you along the way, for the people that have
Hmm.
appreciated you, that supported you. I think that's a really good trait
Hmm.
and quality, Paul. I want to change gear a little bit, and I want to
Hmm.
ask you a little about the creative side of what you do, because you obviously
Hmm.
need inspiration yourself,
Hmm.
and to be in this industry with your chosen career, and I know it's kind of media career as much as it is being a chef still, but
Hmm.
how do you get inspired? Do you talk to people? Is it through listening to podcasts? Is it reading books? Like, how do you get inspired? How do you keep that creativity and that passion alive?
To be honest with you, Simon, it comes, I could be making something and I would turn around and say, you know what, I think this would be go better with this, because certain people and certain dishes, people associate like pork with apple. I would say, yes, do pork with apple, but do try something that people do like. You don't have to stick to your recipe, pork with apple sauce, roast beef with horseradish. To me, it's a matter of taste for the own individual. If people don't like apples with pork, don't do apples with pork. Try something that you would like yourself and that you would enjoy. So you can, when you make the thing, you can say, yes, I like this. So if I make something, I try and do something that people can try something, whether something different from apples is in pork or roast beef and horseradish, so people can go, well, you don't always have to have pork with salmon with tartar sauce, or you don't have to have this with that. Try something new and try something that you will enjoy yourself, because more and more people want to try something different, want to have something boring as usual.
So a lot of your inspiration then comes from the actual, seeking that end result, which is to actually provide something that really connects with the person who's going to be consuming the food and appreciating the food. You're thinking about that, and you're getting inspired in the moment when you're creating that particular dish or that particular outcome or
Exactly.
experience. Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Um,
I'm thinking of that. Yeah, I'm thinking of the person who I'm cooking for,
yeah.
because the way I look at it is, I would cook something that I enjoy. So if I get somebody to cook something that I can go, wow, I can cook that. To me, that gives a more sense of feeling, and so more sense of you've achieved achievement, because I get pictures from people and from the food to say, you showed me how to, you give me the recipe how to make this particular dish. This is the product, and to get this feedback from people is the best thing you'll ever get, because I do food for myself and I do it in my own kitchen. But to me, it's, even though I work in a kitchen for a living every day, I come home at night and I cook as well, which a lot of people would say, but you're a chef, you must be fed up cooking all day. And I go, no, it's when I come home, my mind goes into overdrive and I go, right, how am I going to make this?
So, so you obviously you're in a professional kitchen all day, all night, and when you get home, yet you still have that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of almost like your freedom to, how do I make this better? You're kind of working but enjoying it at the same time, I think is what I'm hearing.
Of course, everybody has a hobby, and whether it's playing golf, playing snooker, go and do whatever it is. My hobby is cooking. I love to cook, and I love to express how I feel when I'm doing in the kitchen. It's where I get my fun, where I get my enjoyment, and the enjoyment that I get is to cook and make something and go, wow, that's incredible. And my aim is to get a cookbook out, because a lot of people always say, look, you inspired us to make a curry, or you inspired me to make a soup. So I get a lot of people come up to me and say, look, how are you making this? How do you do this? So my next couple of years down the line, have a cookbook where people can say, this is Paul Waters. I've met this guy online. This guy knows how to cook. This guy's incredible.
That sounds great. I shall look forward to that, Paul. Um, I wanted to ask you a couple of other questions as well. I wanted to ask you about, throughout your career, people that you admire or
Mhm.
people that have inspired you. Who springs to mind?
obviously my parents, they've made a big factor in my life. They've always supported me ever since I've been very young. Whenever I decided to travel the world, and I've always said to them, look, I want to see the world. I want to travel. I want to gather and gain as much experience as possible, because I think when you travel, you see the world. It opens your whole world of knowledge, whether it's in cooking, whether it's any job that you do. It's a university of life, basically. So it inspired me different places. I've met so many incredible people, so many amazing chefs, and I could talk all day about the amount of people chefs who I work with down the line, who I can look at and say, wow. But every chef is different. Every chef cooks different. But I would always, whenever I'm in the kitchen, I don't say much. I always observe and look at people, see how they work, and see how they connect. Because in a kitchen, you need to observe, you need to think, you always need to think forward. So I would always see how people react, how they would talk to staff, how they would talk to the customers, how they talk to the public. So I thought, okay, this is how you do this, and this is how you talk to people. Because if you can communicate through in the kitchen, you can talk to anybody, no matter what. It builds up confidence in yourself, and it builds up confidence talking to everybody else.
I think that's a great point, Paul. And from the viewing how other chefs cook and how they
Mm-hmm.
communicate too, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we focus an awful lot on the food and the finished product, but the communication
Mm-hmm.
for a fully functioning professional kitchen to serve X amount of covers in a particular moment in time, it's a choreographed fine work of art almost when you see it working effectively and efficiently.
Of course. And sorry, Sam, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and not all chefs do it the same, right? It's quite different depending on the chef.
It depends on the chef, and to be quite honest, it goes back to what I'm saying. Communication is vital, because in big kitchens they have certain sections. They would have a sauce section, they have a fish section, they have a soup section, they have a veg section. But like, so the head chef, he would call it an order. So basically, he would say a fish, a chicken, this here. So each section would hear the particular order. So each chef has to have the timing. It's like a musician. Whenever a musician goes on stage, they have to have the same timing to play the guitar, to play the drums, to play the song. It's the same way it works in the kitchen. You have to have a timing for your veg to be cooked right. The same way the person has to have his chicken or his fish cooked right, and enough time to present the food to the head chef. So the same way in music, you have to have the same combination, so the singer can perform. Is the same way the head chef can perform to put the food on the plate to make the food look good. And that's how people come in. It's like going to a restaurant, it's going to a concert. You're there to entertain. You want to give people the wow factor, so people can turn and say, you know what, that was amazing. I say to my staff, you're on stage, you perform, people are watching you. If you people like what you do, they'll come back and see you.
Yeah, I love that, Paul. Thanks for sharing that.
No worries.
What about advice that you've received? Because you've met some of the world's best known chefs, you've worked in some of the best places, you're actively engaged in the media world when it comes to food and cuisine. What about advice? You must have picked up some advice along the way that you thought was really important, or advice that you often share with people, like you just mentioned there, the way you would talk to your own team. What springs to mind when I talk about advice?
Well, the way I always look at it is always listen, never talk back. There's never a bad question, always never. Oh, if you can't get it right the first time, you try it the second time. If you don't get it right the third time, try it again. I'm a great believer in is, if you can get somebody, some people are always different. So if you can try and teach somebody one time, two times, or three times, whatever it is, be patient with the person. Because I was always taught, and I was always told, nobody's perfect, and no chef is perfect, no matter who you are, no matter what you do. Nobody's perfect at anything. And I always say to people, you take the time to show people how to cook, they'll respect you more than turn around and say, I haven't got the time for you. Because people always said to me, and people always said, if you have the time to learn, I will teach you how to cook. And I always say to my staff, if you want to learn, I'll teach you, and I'll make you a better person, and I'll give you a better understanding of food, and which they'll become. And 9 times out of the 10, they come back to me and say, thank you, I have become a better chef and a person.
That's great to hear, Paul. Thank you. The last couple of things I want to ask you before we run out of time today is, I want to ask you about the next 6 to 12 months ahead. What are you thinking about? What are you planning? What are you working on? What does the next 6 to 12 months look like for Paul?
Hopefully more challenges ahead. I always set myself standards and targets. I wanted to do something that I haven't done before. I want to try food that I haven't done before. I want to try and explore to get more into the TV more, because I think I have a lot more to offer rather than put stuff in newspapers and magazines. I would love to go to people and say, bring my personality that I bring into food and bring it into TV production and say, we can do this here. Because I think, in my personal experience, go back to what we were saying earlier, being a celebrity sometimes can be boring. You watch them on TV. I think if you had my sense of humor, my fun, my enjoyment, people would go, he enjoys what he's doing. He enjoys this. Because you see some chefs on TV, they're just there and they don't like they're having fun. So if you go into the kitchen, it's your job, you have fun. People are paying to see you. And it's the same type of thing that I want to do. I want to bring my enjoyment into the kitchen, whether it's on the TV or back into magazines or newspapers, where people can say, that's new. I've never seen that before. Because that's why food is always changing and it's always on a trend. If we can do something that people can say, wow, that's new, we've never done that before, I'll do it.
I love that answer. Thanks, Paul. And I suppose if people wanted to find out a little bit more about what you do, who you are, where are you sending people to these days? Is it LinkedIn? Is it your website? Is it the media that you work for or with? Sorry.
All the media platforms that I do, I give my personal email, which will be paulwaters35@gmail.com. Or you can find me on Simple Tasty Healthy by PW on Facebook. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, which is Paul W. And I'm always open for queries for people to listen to what I'm saying, what they want to know, and how to cook. And I'm always there for them, no matter what.
Well, that's great. Paul, thanks so much indeed for sharing that. And I know that you have inspired a lot of people in the food industry, and people who've been inspired by you to become a chef, to continue their learning. And I know you value feedback, and you also are one of those people in life who go out of their way to let people know when they've been helpful, that you listen to them, and that you give credit to people. And not everybody does that. So thank you, Paul. That brings us nicely to the end of this episode of the Global Discussion with Paul Waters. Thanks to everybody for watching or listening to this episode. Make sure you like, follow, or subscribe. I'd like you to do that. And hopefully you'll join me back here for more discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. So thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure catching up with you.